In 1966, beneath the iron grip of Nicolae Ceaușescu's Romania, a decree was signed, Decree 770. Abortion banned, contraception outlawed, every womb conscripted into service for the state. The fetus, Ceaușescu declared, was property of the entire society. Within a year, birth rates exploded from 1.9 to 3.7 children per woman. By 1967, 33 orphanages existed with 4,451 beds. They could only meet 50% of demand. The decree would remain law for 23 years. By 1989, between 100,000 and 170,000 children were warehoused in over 700 institutions. An estimated 500,000 children passed through these systems. Most were not orphans, their parents simply could not afford to keep them. Behind locked doors, in remote facilities scattered across Romania, thousands of children were sorted, labeled, and left to die. Those deemed irrecuperable, unproductive to socialist society, were transferred to hospital homes run by the Ministry of Labour. Between 1967 and 1990, more than 15,000 minors died in just 26 of these facilities. The most common recorded cause, bronchopneumonia. The actual cause, systematic neglect. This is the story of Ceaușescu's children, the declassified, the ones who survived, and the thousands who did not. October 1st, 1966. Decree 770 becomes law. Women under 45 with fewer than 4 children are forbidden from obtaining abortions. Later, the threshold rises to 5 children. Sterilization is illegal. Contraceptives vanish from shelves. In factories across Romania, gynecologists, nicknamed the menstruation police, conduct mandatory tri-monthly examinations. Pregnancies must be detected early. Any woman who does not give birth is investigated. Miscarriages become crimes. Pregnant women are monitored by the state until delivery. Childless couples over 25 are taxed up to 30% of their wages. Homosexuals exposed by the Securitate face up to 5 years in prison. Most never regain freedom. Ceaușescu's vision: increase Romania's population from 19 million to 30 million by the year 2000. His belief: population growth equals economic growth. The result is catastrophic. Romania's maternal mortality rate becomes the highest in Europe, more than 10 times that of neighboring countries. More than 10,000 women die during or after illegal abortions. Hundreds of thousands are left infertile from crude clandestine procedures performed in desperation. Mothers forced to give birth turn to the state. Propaganda assures them the state will care for these children better than families can. Thousands of infants are abandoned in maternity wards. The state orphanages overflow. But the 1980s brings something worse. Ceaușescu decides to repay Romania's foreign debt by seizing the country's economic output. Austerity ravages the nation. Food disappears. Heating fails. In orphanages across Romania, temperatures drop to 6 degrees Celsius. Children freeze to death in their beds. By 1982, conditions in the institutions collapse entirely. What was neglect becomes extermination by design. In Law 3 of 1970, the state reorganizes the entire child protection system. A new category is created: irrecuperable. Children with disabilities, malnutrition, or developmental delays are labeled unproductive. They are assigned to the Ministry of Labour's hospital homes. At age 3, children are sorted. The healthy go to state orphanages. The rest are sent to remote facilities in places like Sighișoara, near the Hungarian border. Of the 138 children who died there between 1987 and 1990, 84 were exactly 3 years old, the minimum age for legal removal from families. The system does not hide these deaths, it simply does not care. January 1990. British journalist Bob Graham enters an orphanage in Bucharest. What strikes him first is not the filth, not the smell of urine and decay. It is the silence. Rows of metal cribs. 2, sometimes 3 children per cot. Eyes open, staring, not a sound. No crying, no whimpers, just silence. The children have learned. No one is coming. In more than 50 institutions hidden in remote areas, 8,000 children exist under conditions resembling concentration camps. Western observers later revised the figure to 40,000. At the Institute for the Unsalvageables in Sighetu Marmației, children are tied to beds with rags. Some are placed in straitjackets, others locked in cages. The average child receives more than 200 injections in a 4-week period, more than 2 per week. Needles are reused without sterilization. Power shortages mean boiling is incomplete. Metal and glass syringes spread disease from child to child. In 1990, over 10,000 institutionalized children are infected with HIV. By 2000, 60% of Europe's pediatric HIV/AIDS cases are Romanian children. More than half of children in some orphanages test positive. The practice? Giving microtransfusions of unscreened blood to malnourished infants. The belief? It will make them stronger. It does not. Children are given psychiatric medication to control behavior. Those who rock back and forth, a symptom of complete sensory deprivation, are diagnosed as mentally deficient and moved to worse facilities. Self-stimulation from lack of human contact is labeled pathology. At Gradinari, verification notes from the Ministry of Health record temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius inside buildings in March, colder than outside. At Suceava, 8 degrees. At Botoșani in winter 1988, 6 degrees. Children with clubbed feet, cleft palates, or minor disabilities are labeled irrecuperable by untrained nurses and sent to die. In one orphanage in 1989, 4,127 injections are administered. Only 810 syringes are sterilized. Staff are encouraged to beat children as appropriate discipline. Those who refuse are considered weak. Supervisors force children to hit each other as punishment. The older children beat the younger ones. Everyone beats everyone. Orphanage workers steal food from children's rations. Bread portions are split in 2 so staff can take half. Children who soil their beds are bathed with their sheets in cold water. No toys, no books, no stimulation. Babies spend entire days lying on their backs in cribs. They develop without learning to speak or walk. Their brains, deprived of input, do not develop normally. MRI studies decades later show their brains are physically smaller than children raised with care. In 1991, the average age of children at Craiove's institution for abandoned children is between 1 and 5. More than 250 children are confined there. The ratio, 20 children per caregiver. Staff members walk past rows of cribs without stopping. Pediatrician Barbara Bascom visits in 1990. She sells her home in Maryland to devote 3 years to what she calls a man-made disaster. Children, she says, are dying every day. The magnitude, we have not seen it in our lifetime. December 22, 1989. Nicolae Ceaușescu is overthrown. 3 days later, he and his wife Elena are executed by firing squad. Within weeks, foreign journalists flood into Romania. What they discover shocks the world. In January 1990, ABC's 2020 arrives at an institution in Sighetu Marmației. Producer Janice Tomlin later recalls, "It was like an insane asylum. We saw kids in straitjackets, we saw kids in a cage, we saw this boy who was literally starving, dying." The 2020 footage airs in 1990 under the title Shame of a Nation. Images spread globally, skeletal children stacked on shelves like loaves of bread, babies with hollow eyes, children tied to beds, naked bodies covered in sores. British reporter Bob Graham describes institutions as stalls where children, babies were treated like farm animals. No, at least animals felt brave enough to make a noise. ABC, BBC and other outlets broadcast the footage repeatedly. The term Romanian orphan crisis enters the global lexicon. In 1990, 121 Romanian children receive American adoption visas, but not all adoptions are legitimate. In June 2001, Emma Nicholson, the European Parliament's rapporteur for Romania, criticizes officials for involvement in child trafficking. Romania orders a ban on international adoptions. The reason, corruption. Children are being sold. Doctors like Rodica Samoilă in Giurgiu facilitate foreign adoptions by convincing poor or underage mothers to give up newborns. She receives $2,000 per child. When interviewed, she is unapologetic. It seems a humanitarian act for a child to be sent to a real family rather than be left in an orphanage. In 1996, Femia magazine publishes an investigation. Faced with this mind-boggling commerce of human beings, we cannot help but wonder where the sudden passion of foreigners for Romanian children comes from. Between 1990 and 2004, approximately 30,000 Romanian children are adopted internationally. Less than 1% are actual orphans. Most have biological families listed on birth certificates. Mothers place them in orphanages temporarily, hoping to reclaim them when finances improve. When they return to visit, staff bar them from entry. A law states parents who fail to visit for 6 months lose parental rights. The children are taken. In 2010 and 2011, Constanța, Romania's Black Sea port, becomes known as the country's child trafficking capital. Children disappear from institutions. Some end up as sex slaves in the UK and Israel. In December 2001, Israeli newspaper Haaretz publishes an article, "Romania probes Israeli adoption agency link in organ trafficking." The truth beneath the adoptions, a network extracting children, their bodies, their innocence, for profit. In Switzerland, grassroots efforts establish a fund to compensate victims. By the 2020s, 11,000 people, most adopted by Swiss families, receive official apologies and 25,000 Swiss francs each. In Romania, no one is ever held accountable. Despite multiple complaints filed by the Institute for the Investigation of Crimes of Communism, no individual linked to the deaths in orphanages is tried. No one is found guilty. They grew up, the ones who survived. Today, an estimated 500,000 people alive in Romania were raised in Ceaușescu's institutions. Many never learned their real names. Birth certificates were forged, dates of birth altered, personal identification numbers falsified. One adoptee, Lucian Shepers, discovers his adoption file lists 2 different birth years, 1985 and 1986. He does not know which is true. He does not know if his memories are real. On Facebook, groups form Căutare Adopții România. Search for adoptions, Romania. Thousands of people post their stories. My name at birth was... They search for parents, siblings, anyone who remembers. Sometimes someone replies, I'm your sister. My mother knows her. You have 3 other siblings. Most receive nothing. In 2000, researchers launched the Bucharest Early Intervention Project, the only randomized controlled trial of foster care versus institutional care. They recruit 136 children from orphanages. Half are placed in foster homes. Half remain in institutions. The results, published over 20 years, confirm what the world suspected. Children raised in institutions suffer permanent damage. Brain scans show reduced grey matter volume. IQs are lower. Language acquisition is delayed. Rates of ADHD, autism, and psychiatric disorders are dramatically higher. Even after adoption into loving families, many cannot form attachments. When shown images of their adoptive mothers versus strangers, their brains do not distinguish between them. The theory of a sensitive period is confirmed. Children removed from institutions before age 2 show near complete recovery. Those removed after age 2 carry scars for life. One finding stands above the rest. Children placed in foster care before 6 months develop almost normally. After 24 months, damage becomes irreversible in some domains. By 2016, the number of institutionalized children in Romania drops from 100,000 to 8,000. The government promises to close all remaining orphanages by 2020. The deadline is extended to 2022. As of 2025, approximately 3,700 children remain in 134 institutions. But the decree are still here. Many are homeless. Street children in Bucharest sniff orolac, paint thinner, from plastic bags to numb the hunger. They sleep in the metro. Some turn to sex work. Others disappear into trafficking networks. Daniel Rucăreanu, president of the Association Federe, a Romanian term for orphans derived from garbage dump, pushes the government to apologize. His organization represents the survivors. They demand acknowledgement. They demand justice. The response? Silence. Romanian society still stigmatizes orphans. Many hide their pasts. One university graduate, now a music teacher, asks that his name be withheld. Even adult orphans are discriminated against. I rarely tell people. I worry I might lose my job or apartment if people found out. Isidor Ruckel, adopted by an American family in 1991, returns to Romania in 2001 with ABC's 2020. He walks through the institution where he spent the first 10 years of his life. The children line up in Sunday clothes. They sing. Someone gives him flowers. He films footage of children still tied to beds, still caged, still neglected. Ruckel becomes an advocate. He writes a memoir, Abandoned for Life. He produces a documentary, Given Our Chance. He speaks across the United States and Romania. His message, I share my story so other orphans know they are not alone. But he cannot change the past. In 2013, researchers investigating communist-era crimes confirm more than 15,000 minors died in institutions for disabled and mentally ill children between 1967 and 1990. Many more likely died, but were never counted. Romania has never been able to count them all. Near old orphanages, mass graves are discovered. No one knows how many bodies. No one knows their names. The truth survived. The children did not. This is not a story about ghosts. It is a story about what happens when a nation buries its children to build its future. Decree 770 was revoked on December 26, 1989, the day after Ceaușescu's execution. But its consequences remain. The oldest decree are now in their late 50s. Many struggle with addiction, mental illness, homelessness. Some do not know their families. Some were never meant to. In 2022, researchers at Harvard continue studying the Romanian orphans as they turn 16, then 18, then older. The data confirms what cannot be undone. Early deprivation reshapes the brain. The earlier intervention occurs, the more recovery is possible. But recovery is never complete. Romania now has foster care. International adoption is banned except for grandparents. Institutions for children under 2 are illegal. Progress has been made. But the ghost generation remains. 500,000 people raised in a system designed not to nurture them, but to contain them, to sort them, to label them recoverable or irrecuperable, to decide who lives and who does not. In 2025, survivors continue searching for answers, for names, for families, for the truth about who they were before the state took them. Some will never know. The truth survived, even when they were not meant to.